Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 261, XXx from 2002. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Shane Diesel. Shane Diesel was born on July 28th, 1963 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he is an actor and director.
Porn star?
We're watching XXx, bro.
Well, so I have one of my, before we introduce our guest, I have one bit of trivia that the middle X was capitalized to differentiate the film from the porn rating. So, yeah, so shout out to that. But welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. And also shout out to Cassie Wilson, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleiman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party, Haley Gerbies, Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden, Renato DiDonato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, Tom Price, and Jessica Collins. I tried to do without taking a breath. I was so close, a.k.a. Montez. Thank you all so much for supporting us at the $5 a month level or above. With us tonight, we have returning champion to the podcast, the resident historian, himself, Mr. Mike Manzi. Hello, Mike.
Guys, thank you for having me back. And I would just like to say real quick, let me just get a clean version of this for anyone to do what they like. I've been waiting to do this for a little bit here. So,
here comes Mr. Impression. Let's go.
Quick.
Let's
go. It's not an impression, but it's close. But we coming first, not last. We gonna have a blast. We driving fast cars fast. We talking on podcasts. What's up, everybody?
Did you write that?
Yeah, I came up with that like a couple weeks ago.
It was good.
Just driving around.
That's good. Beautiful. I like it.
And I've been annoying Robin with it ever since. So
I feel like most things that you say wind up annoying Robin. Like again at my barbecue, you were like you mentioned, Triples is best, and Robin's like, he says shit from this show every single day. So.
Yeah, I mean, I eventually explained it to her that it helps me get through the day, and then she kind of laid off me. But yeah,
I think that's fair.
100% agree. I quote movies instead of talking to people all the time because it's just like much easier to just not think about what you're about to say and just be like, yeah, you can deal, and just speak in just weird.
Well, speaking of Triples is best, we are kicking off a 3-part crossover extravaganza. We have XXx right here. Sometime in the next week, we will have a bonus Patreon episode about XXx 2 because XXx State of the Union. Sorry, not XXx 2, XXx State of the Union, because Vin Diesel not in that. And then over on Mike's podcast, Third Time's a Charm, we're going to be doing XXx, The Return of Xander Cage. So very excited to do all 3 of these because I had never seen these first 2. Joe, you had never seen any of them?
Not one of these movies.
And Mike, had you seen any of these 3 before or no?
Yes, I've seen number 1 on Blu-ray and number 3 in theaters.
Okay.
Never 2, though.
Never saw 2. Cool. Nothing against Cube, but can't wait to watch it.
I'm very excited for that, too. I saw 3 in theaters with friend of the show, Melissa Lynham, which I didn't remember that I saw until I was watching this one, and I saw his big furry coat, which is like one of the very few things I remember from the 3rd movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I saw this in theaters. I think I saw this with Melissa. And so I messaged her, and she's like, and she said something like, I won't spoil for Joe. And I was like, yep, that's the one. So, yeah. So we saw that together in theaters. But I had never seen this, and I don't know why I never saw this, other than maybe the same reason I had never saw any Fast and Furious movie, because I'm just like, I don't know, dumb action movie. You know what I mean? Like one of those kind of pretentious things, but like, I don't know. Because this is also, importantly for us, directed by Rob Cohen a year after the first movie. So this is like their collective follow-up. Yeah.
Because I saw that it was directed by Rob Cohen at the end, but I was going to ask you, like, which came first, like, because I obviously knew you would know. So I was going to, like, ask, like, which came first, like this or...
Yeah, it feels like there's a bunch of kind of nods to, we just made Fast and Furious, like, we're coming off of that, and we're just sort of transitioning right into this, where it's just like a one-man army version, basically, of what Fast and Furious will become. It's weird, like, this is sort of what Fast and Furious will become, like, in a lot of ways. Like, I wonder if he kind of was steering it, pun intended, in that direction. I don't know.
Well, the other thing we're going to find out this lap, that I've seen all of them but not in forever, is that after we do this, we're going to do the Riddick movies. And I
boy.
feel like those are also going to inform what Fast and Furious kind of becomes in sort of more like less ground. I mean, this is not grounded. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. Like, I think everything Vin Diesel does is just elevating reality into another plane, right? So
Yeah, I hear you, Joey, though, because definitely with those Riddick movies, like I quite like those movies for whatever reason. I think just the sci-fi fantasy of it all. But the second one totally blows up the world, like world building wise, in the way they start doing with Fast and Furious later on. So I think maybe some of that crosses over.
if you have not seen XXX, I think it's on HBO Max. Is
That's
that right?
where I watched it. Yep.
Okay. Because I watched the Blu-ray because I have the very important, very commemorative 15th anniversary edition, famous 15th anniversary. But if you've not seen XXX, this is the plot summary. According to IMDb, an extreme sports athlete, Xander Cage, is recruited by the government on a special mission. That's the end of the story because I'm pretty sure whoever wrote that doesn't know what happened in this movie either because I could not tell you what the plot of this movie was.
So I had a typical Joe experience watching this, which was that whenever I watch these action movies that are really, really fast paced like this, like I get completely lost. So like like my brain just like doesn't want to process this much stimulation. I definitely have some highlights. I definitely watch it and have some notes, but there's giant gaps of it that I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck happened.
It is overwhelming in a lot of ways, in like good and bad ways. Ultimately, I think it's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I have a very old Blu-ray, which looks like it might have been like a send away for 3 when you get a PlayStation 3.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the back of this one? There's a little paragraph, if that
Sure,
helps.
yeah, go for it.
Please.
Xander Cage, Vin Diesel, is a notorious underground thrill seeker who, until now, has been deemed untouchable by the law. But when crack NSA agent Gibbons convinces Cage to infiltrate a ruthless Russian crime ring, this new breed of secret agent, codenamed XXX, takes down the enemies of justice with a vengeance in this high-octane, turbocharged thrill ride from acclaimed director of The Fast and the Furious.
Okay, so yeah, they know exactly what they're doing with this.
Yes, that is, I mean, I followed all of that in the movie as well.
Yes.
But that's a much more clear description of what actually is going on here.
Yeah, and it's concise too. I think that's pretty much what happens. But they even like throw in the turbocharged version of directed by Fast and the Furious. Yeah.
Because I will also say, I don't want I don't understand what happened here to be a condemnation because I don't think it matters.
No.
I think this is a movie filled with crazy stunts and a million one-liners.
Yep.
And I had a blast. I don't think this is good, and I don't care. Like, I just had a blast watching this. It's probably too long. I wish it wasn't 2 hours long.
Agreed.
But I really enjoyed it. But before we get there, okay. I'm going to bring the room down for a second. There's 2 sort of somber, heavy things that happened. Number 1, a stuntman died while making this movie.
Oh, that sucks. I didn't know
On
that.
a parasailing thing. I don't know if it was the opening red sports car thing, which we'll talk about, or later. But one time when he was parasailing, he flew into one of those, like, bridge.
No, it got to be the end where he's like on the zip line kind of and comes down onto the
That's incredible.
Torpedo thing. It had to be then.
The Ahab missile.
He hit a pillar of the Pulaski Bridge in Prague while parasailing.
Yeah, I'm imagining it's that.
Because there's 2 different sort of parasailing scenes. One of them, the guy passed away during, I guess that was his second take. The first one they used in the movie. So, like, I think it's always kind of weird, like, do you keep it in there? But, like, they honored him, I guess, for his last work. Who knows, right?
That's
but, like,
weird. Yeah, that feels weird to me, too. I don't know what you do in that situation.
It's tough call, but this feels like more than anything, even at the time probably, but now especially, like, it feels like a stunt movie, like we're here for real explosions, real stunts, real people, like doing real shit. There's very small CGI. Like, I think the snowboarding sequence is incredible, however they pulled that off. So it's definitely a shame to hear that someone passed away during the making of it, but I'm kind of surprised only one person got mortally wounded or injured in this, because it looks impossible. It looked like watching is like this looks impossible, some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
well, the other thing that's wild is that apparently Vin did most of his own stunts, which I don't know how that's possible just because it's so crazy and, like, he's already, like, leading the Fast and Furious. Like, I don't understand that. But the only thing that he didn't do, apparently, was the Corvette base jump. So this guy, Tim Rigby, who's like a stunt guy, wore a Vin Diesel mask, and all I want the Pam's Kids tip jar from the Zeph movie, and I want this Vin Diesel mask. Like, those are the only two movie props I've ever wanted, because I want a Vin Diesel mask that's good enough for XXX.
I agree. That's awesome, and I wish we could find it.
The other sad thing, and I think we need to talk about this as well briefly, we mentioned something about this a year or two ago when news first broke. Rob Cohen had been accused of his trans daughter, I think.
Yes.
His daughter said that she was sexually abused or something by him. I don't remember the exact details because it was horrific, and I tried to put it out of my memory. Like, I feel like I should know it, but I don't.
Yeah.
But
man, no.
Asia Argento, who is the female lead in this movie, last year in January 2021, said that Rob Cohen drugged her and raped her while filming this movie.
Jesus, fuck.
And so one of Cohen's reps said this was, quote, absolutely false. So I don't know that anything ever came of it, but now this is at least two different people who have brought claims against Rob Cohen. And I know it's hard to separate the art from the artist, and it's so fucked up. And like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say she's right or she's wrong, because who knows, but like, that's in multiple places on the internet. And so just out there that like in this very fun, dumb action movie, there's somebody died, and also, you know, she had a terrible experience in whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it just, so.
It's just like, oh man, that sucks. Like, I believe her because I think, like, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, she's testified against Weinstein. Like, she's, you know, had issues with this in the past. It's sort of like why at one point she seemed to be everywhere, and then all of a sudden she was nowhere. It feels like she got like kind of like kicked out for speaking up. Yeah, which is unfortunate, man. But like, I don't know. That's a ick vibe, man. That's too bad. But that also, you know, like, there is sort of like a gross vibe in this movie with all of like the Euro trash. I guess they're Russian trash, but like, there's just this weird. It's in Prague, and it just feels kind of grimy at times, where it's just like, what are these guys doing?
This feels like, to me, like we did the Transporter movies. Like, you and I talked about Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Like, this feels like a sequel where you're like, we don't have any money for the movie, so like, let's just go overseas and like do something, like try to do the first movie again, but like in like Eastern Europe. But like, that's just like where they're starting. Like, it's a very weird thing. I don't know. But again, I loved it. The only other thing I want to say before we get into it was that the first choice to play Xander Cage was Eric Bana, aka the Bad Hulk, I guess, the one from the Ang Lee movie. But he turned it down to do a movie called The Nugget, which I've never heard of.
Oh, good choice.
Right. Me neither.
Okay. 600 people have seen The Nugget on Letterboxd. It has an average rating of 2.9. One person is in their top 4. Yeah, so Eric Bana turned down probably a hefty payday to do a indie movie that nobody's ever seen. So.
Yeah. Whenever they can stump you two, I'm proud.
But let's dive into it. Let's try to put the downers of the stuff behind us. Initial thoughts on XXX, good, bad. Joe, what do you think of this movie?
I found it a ton of fun, too. I need to like rewatch and reprocess it. Like I said last night, it's a lot. It's hyper stimulating for me. I don't do well with action movies that are this fast paced. So I had trouble keeping up at times and like questions and stuff. But like you said, it doesn't really matter. And I had a ton of fun with all the set pieces. I thought it was awesome. I'm excited to see where this goes. This felt kind of like a counterpart. There's a lot of Fast and Furious in here, obviously, with Rob Cohen and like Vin. So like, it definitely felt like it goes hand in hand with Fast and the Furious, especially at like certain points and one-liners and stuff like that. It's like they're almost like just like nodding at the audience in the theater, like oh yeah, like this is just another Fast and the Furious kind of movie, so just deal. I enjoyed it. How about you guys? Did anybody else like it? Not like it?
Yeah, Mike, what do you think, and how does this compare to, I guess, the last time or the other times you've watched this?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty much the same. Like, I've always enjoyed these movies for what they are, which is just kind of like loud, fun, super extreme James Bond type shit for the, you know, Pepsi generation. Maybe not. Yep. I'm the Pepsi generation.
For the monster generation.
The monster generation.
The Kyle generation. Yes.
You know, we get a lot of kind of extreme sports cameos very early on, and it's all that, like, you know, my Letterboxd review is this movie was, and I didn't mean this in a bad way, I just like to try and, you know, put it out there, but like, this movie felt like it was directed by a bottle of Code Red Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
And
that's totally sums it up. Yep, 100%.
And it wears it, you know, as tattoos on his sleeves, right? Like, it's proud of it, and it's doing it, and it cranks up the Prodigy, and it says, sit back, relax, and get ready for tons of explosions. Everything Vin says is like a one-liner with a smirk and a smile, and it kind of took me a couple minutes to realize, like, that's what he's going for. That I was like, at first it's like, these line deliveries are horrible. But then I was like, wait a minute, everything is done with a wink to us, and with the realization that he's being filmed and he's playing that like sort of YouTuber before it became like huge, or the extreme sport sort of streaming guy, like that whole angle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff in here to explore.
The craziest thing about this movie to me is that he apparently does not go by XXX, even though he has a XXX tattoo. Like at one point, Samuel L. Jackson, who plays Augustus Gibbons, who like Nick Fury has a scarred face and like has
he
a
says
damaged
Fury
eye.
something to him too. He like refers to him as something Fury, or like says, and I was like, what the fuck, like total premonition. But
And there's also a Dark Fury Pitch Black thing that we're going to watch too. So like there's a lot of Fury on both sides of that conversation, I guess. But he goes something like, you should go by the name XXX. It's like, he has the tattoo. Like what? Why would he
did
have
that mean?
What?
I think that's just extreme to the third, right? Like he's that, like X is extreme, but he's got 3 X's, so he's triple the extreme.
I was like, okay, it feels like this is like an origin story, because like the weird thing is like this movie starts out in like a German techno club, whatever. Like it kind of feels a little like Du Hast. It feels like a little bit like the Matrix.
I was gonna say,
Reloaded.
is it Rammstein that is
I
like
don't know.
I think it is Prodigy, right? I thought it was, but I don't know.
You think Prodigy?
I said it as a joke, but I actually think like now it might have been.
Yeah, because it's like, I know one of them uses like the pyro and like the pyro out of the mouth thing, and like they were queuing in so hard on the band. It was one of those things where like, if you like this band, you know this band, here's this band type situation. You know what I mean? Like it was too on the nose for you to, like, they would have just been in the background if it wasn't like an actual.
Yeah, Rammstein does have a song on the soundtrack, and I think, and it says like, under exclusive license. I think they performed it in this movie. I think that is Rammstein.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Cool.
Yeah, because
I like
I know
the
that they're
cage.
big on the pyro, so that's what cued me into thinking that was that.
Yeah.
So this movie starts like in this German rave with like this, hard rock band playing, and there's this whole thing. I'm expecting Vin to swoop in and do a thing, right? Because it's like, this is the introduction. Here's XXX, and then not only does he not show up, like basically nothing happens. Like it's this whole thing. Like you think
they
something
shoot a guy.
Yeah, but it's just like, oh, okay. So
It's a
then,
random guy.
So it's all just for the. I'm sure the one guy just had this idea of a visual of a dead guy crowd surfing, because that's like what this whole sequence leads up to, right? Just the image of the dead guy being passed around on the crowd. No one realizes he's dead, and it's like, oh, but what does any of it mean? I don't know. I don't think we ever find out.
Like the movie is setting up the 3 different things. It's like there's like this Euro thing. Then we got to Sam Jackson, who has like we see him sort of limping with his like a little bit of a lisp and the face and whatever. And he's going through the slideshow of the scum of the earth, the worst of the worst. And it's kind of like, Interpol's Most Wanted. One of them is Vin. And then we cut to Vin, who is posing as a valet, stealing a red sports car, Mike. Very Nicolas Cage of him.
Yes.
And like he's doing this like performative extreme sports thing, and I'm like, okay, so we're setting up the 3 different things, but I felt like this is like a Vin Diesel movie, and the fact that he wasn't in the first 2 scenes, I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, I feel like it's still early Vin, right? Like we can't. I feel like in some way I got to wrap my head around that. Like he doesn't show up in Fast and Furious for a while, right? Like he.
About 7 minutes in.
Okay, so like I bet if we timed it, it might be earlier than it might be around the same time, and he has a way bigger introduction in this movie, and then he's never really going to leave the screen, so
That's
it's
true.
like going to be his deal. And I actually was like, I think part of the reason I'm confused most of the movie is because how fast they blow over the actual plot, because in that sort of, I don't know, like meeting that Nick Fury has, he's like, we gotta stop using real agents and start using America's Most Wanted, and it's like, well, blackmail them and shit. And I was like, I don't care, just like make up anything you need to make Vin Diesel, like he should have been your cousin or like your nephew, like Kingsman, right? Like I would have accepted that. So I don't know.
Or just like, I feel like if this movie came out today, they would have been like, oh, you mean the Suicide Squad thing? Like that would have been enough.
Yes.
They're like, okay, I get what you're doing. But like this, I
We're
get
gonna-
the setup like, we're gonna have someone who's not a good guy pretend to be a good guy, but he's undercover.
Joey, you just nailed it. I bet that's what, like, if we might start getting in the second one, like they're building a team, like we're gonna have, each are gonna have their own movie, and then they'll all
Triple
come
Z,
together.
triple
But-
Y.
But I guess Vin was like, I want to come back early, so
Yeah, like
They
I
only
have
made
no
it to
idea
2.
what Ice Cube's character name is. Like I don't know if he goes by XXX as well. Like I have no concept of what the second movie is.
Ice Cube
We'll
is
find
in the
out.
second one. I didn't know this.
I told you this like a month ago, but yes, he's the star of the second one, and then he shows up briefly in the third movie. But like, I think they're trying to do like a connective world, but it feels like the kind of thing where like it feels like the Fast and the Furious. Again, we'll talk about it, I guess, then. But it's like, okay, Vin's in this first movie. It's exactly what it is. It's like a testosterone thing for like 13-year-old boys.
Yep.
And then he leaves, and it becomes maybe big, question mark, I don't know. And he's like, all right, no, I gotta come back. I gotta do more. It's just like, oh, okay. But like he keeps leaving things, and like it keeps living on. Then he comes back. It's just this weird parallel, I guess.
That is strange.
Yeah, because that's just what happened with Riddick too, right? Or oh, no. Well, he was able to continue Riddick, but like, yeah, he was able to continue that by going back to Fast and Furious or
Correct.
something or other.
Yes.
Yeah, so like it's interesting how many of his things have like come and gone and then come again. I wonder if he saw like, oh, they're gonna keep going without me, and it's gonna be a franchise. Like I can't let that happen.
I need to get some of this good money. Yeah.
And I don't blame him. Yeah.
Get the bag, dude. I'm happy for everybody getting paid. I want everybody paid as much as possible.
Even Anarchy 99?
Yeah.
What is Anarchy 99? Is that just the organization? Like, what is that?
They're a bunch of
like his
ex-Russian soldiers.
Okay.
They're all a bunch of, like, Red Guardians, you know? It's like...
Okay. Man, it's very, very strange that, like, Anarchy...
they said
like, it's
that.
so stupid. Yeah.
They said Anarchy 99 like 40 times.
40
and I missed
times.
the one time that they explained what it was. I'm like,
They
"Man,
didn't.
I want to know what Anarchy 99 is. Like, I do too, Vin. Like, what is it? I don't know what...
Yeah, we don't really find out until the very, very end. Like we got a lot of fun of his like recruitment to talk about, but like just skip into that anarchy crap. Like, and their gig is like they have some kind of like death potion that they're gonna unleash in Prague and kill a bunch of like I'm yawning. Like G.I. Joe, if you guys remember, like destroyed all of London from shooting like missiles from space, and you know, like stakes need to be way bigger, I feel, for Vin Diesel at this. But hey, maybe they learned that lesson.
No, they're coming off the first Fast and the Furious. He was stealing DVD players. Now they might kill a couple cities worth of people because he's like, even Samuel L. Jackson at one point is like if we stop this, we can save, like we can lose one city but save a bunch of others. And you're like, okay, cool.
Okay, yes. I guess from movie to movie stakes are high, but I just figured for the XXX program, I thought it was going to be like, you know,
End of the world immediately.
Yeah, I mean, technically he is sort of riding the missile, like, you know, like pulling shit out of it up until the last second, like Captain America or something, but I don't know.
I mean, the movie starts with him, like his character introduced in like a very like crazy over the top way that like in the grand scheme of things is not that insane, but like for any normal person, be like, holy shit, like he steals this car of a politician who hates music and video games.
Yes.
And thinks that they're
Skateboarding
like ruining
is a
society.
crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he says, it's just music, Dick. And then he says, Dick, you've entered the Xander zone. And he's
Top
like talking,
tier.
I thought he was talking to our camera, but he's talking to an in-car camera. Like Mike was saying, he's like a YouTuber.
Yep.
He then jumps the car off a freeway, parasails out of it as it crashes to the ground below, and then returns home to a clubhouse party where a woman is like, I want to make a video game of your life. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, not only that, Eve, the rapper, is running
Yes.
their underground illegal website where they stream all of his videos because YouTube doesn't exist yet. This is 2002. Like, that wasn't like till 2005 or something.
Yep.
So, like, it's even crazier.
And
Tony Hawk is there?
Tony Hawk picked him up in the car when he landed. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
But what I think is really funny about this, just very quickly, is that, like, you wouldn't know that he's, like, I know that he parasails, but, like, they have a guy, like, on, like, a mini half-pipe, like, doing a skateboard trick. Just like, oh, these kids are, like, extreme. Like, it's just, like, there's no sense of, like, that they're anything other than, like, criminals or daredevils or whatever, but they're oh, this one guy has a skateboard, so, like, they're all into skateboarding.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's like the cast of Nitro Circus from MTV. I don't know if you remember that show. That's the target audience, I think.
I was going to ask that, but you guys summed it up. Mike saying it was directed by a Code Red Mountain Dew is like, yeah, that's exactly what the target audience is. The car off the bridge thing is great though, because like they almost exactly do it again in what?
Part 5, right?
Fast 5, yeah. Like it's almost identical to what happens with him like driving off the bridge, falling down, except he falls into the water versus like has a parachute. But they like shoot the car off. I think they were both Corvettes too. Now that I think about it, so it's like almost a mirrored image. It's really strange to see.
It's a great stunt. I mean, it works. It works for me both
Sells.
times. It
Yeah.
sells. Yeah, all the stunts in here are great. I mostly have a problem with some of the editing and like the coverage. I wish they wouldn't cut away quite as much. They might be doing that to try and like extend sequences for like a runtime or something or other. But other than that, like the stunt work is just I'm in awe. I'm just at my jaws like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like I think Joe, you were saying that your brain can't really process the high speed stunt thing, and I think
No, it's not the speed. It's exactly what Mike said. It's the editing, chopping is very, very hard for me to stay focused in.
Right, and I think like what I was about to say was that it's not. I think it's not that it's like the speed of it. I think it's just that this isn't done well. Because I think like a good action movie, like a Mad Max Fury Road, is insane, and like that's faster than like literally and metaphorically and figuratively whatever, faster than just about any other movie ever. But because it's edited like better than any other movie's ever been edited, you're able to follow. Your brain can track the action, like it's teaching you where to look. Here, there's like an action scene, and all of a sudden we're following a missile. It's like, wait, I don't understand like where, and then like there's like a wide shot. It's like I don't know what I can't get it. Like my brain can't follow where the action is starting and going. Like if you ever like in the film class sense of things, like there's like lines of sight and like you're supposed to the movie's supposed to teach you where to look like, from cut to cut, and here they're just like things are happening. It's like, okay, so I get a sense of like action, but I don't know who's doing what or where it's happening. And so I think it's not necessarily the speed or the amount or just like the type of editing, it's just that this isn't done well.
That's absolutely fair, and I think that's part of the problem. And I don't know if like I could solve that for myself personally with a bigger screen or a smaller screen.
I don't think it's either of those, to be honest. I think it's just that it's not presented like it's not good visual storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right, Joey. That's like sort of, I think you nailed it, because this is something I've come across recently a lot by watching, like we covered Sharknado 3 on my show this summer, and the main thing is like,
hell no.
Yeah, and it's like you can't follow that movie because like it doesn't match. Like nothing matches shot for shot because half the cast isn't even there with each other, and there's all these cameos and all this blue screen and all this other shit going on, and it's just like a mess, aside from it being another mess on top of that, like just not competent filmmaking. And there's this isn't that bad, but like it's not that good either, like when you think that like Brett Ratner can pull off Rush Hour 2 and these guys can't even do XXX 1, like that's a little sort of like frustrating when you're watching it, because it's like you don't have to do anything, just put the camera there and let the stunt do all the work.
Yep.
Because like you were saying, like most of this is practical. I know there's CGI in here as well, and like that they're trying to like either have coverage for it or cover it. Like I don't know what they're doing, but like it's not really working. And like that's why I'm like almost all of my notes and almost all the lines that I wrote down are basically like the one-liner before, like right before the action. It's like he'll say something like insane and like cool and funny and awesome, and then there'll be like a thing and just like I don't know what the fuck's going on. But like that moment right before like the calm before the storm, I'm like, hell yeah. Like Vin saying, I live for this shit. Or moral is don't be a dick. Or I just want to buy cars, man. Like there's so many dumb lines. I told him that cigarette would kill him one day. Like those are not in action scenes. They're like around action scenes, right? So
Right. Yeah, no, I picked up on that as well, and I think that some of that makes it end up being like a little stale, because it's like it gets a little repetitive or something when they just won't, show it and end it. But yeah, some of my favorite stuff is like, when he's teasing Danny Trejo and stuff, and then he's just realizes he's like, wait, that smells like real blood, and he like, and I'm like, oh wow, his character is like been around a lot of real blood that's been dried on, like he's got experience with that, like that's insane. Like my brain just builds a world for him, you know what I'm saying?
The scene before that, we get like a fast forward to Fast and Furious number 4, where at the party these SWAT guys burst in and they drug him and they haul him away, right? and he wakes up groggy in a diner, and he's coming to, and just like the beginning of Fast and Furious, where he's visualizing Letty's car crash, like he's Sherlock Holmes or something. He's the best detective in the room. He's just like, she's wearing heels. That guy's reading the Financial Times. It's a Sunday. This guy is dressed up too nicely. This is this or whatever. I'm just like, okay, like he explains it all. Like this is all set up to like to prove that he's got it or whatever. And I'm like, since when is he like the greatest detective in all these movies? Like Dom's a detective, XXX is a detective. Like what is happening? I love it, but I don't understand it.
I don't know either. I mean, it's funny because it's like the movie telling us like he's got what it takes to be a super spy, but like you're gonna have to take our word for it because the last scene he just stole a car, posing as a valet with like which like anybody can do, like it doesn't take kind of like spy tactics to like grab one of those jackets off of someone and just stand there and wait for someone to throw you their keys. And I don't think any of that ever comes into play later. Like he's never in sort of a situation where he's got to rely on his, putting something together. Like, wait a minute, this isn't right. Something smells fishy here. Like you're supposed to do this and he's supposed to say that. And like, how did you know? So it's a bit like just for this. It's a cool scene, but it just feels like it's only for this cool scene, and I'm fine with that.
Joe, what do you think of Vin as detective?
I really liked it, but I mean, like, he even in Fast and Furious, we see that he's like the best at everything. So it doesn't feel unexpected that he just happens to like come in, be super observant, be the best action star, stunt guy ever, and all these things at once. So I was like, oh, this is just funny, and maybe it played a little long for me, but I was like, okay, fine, that works for me.
I guess I was a little more confused as to like what were they really testing? Like, did he have the balls to stop a robbery, or was he supposed to know that it was fake? Because I feel like he did both, and I don't know which one they wanted him to do. I think they just wanted him to have the guts to be able to stop the robbery, but he goes the extra mile and explains like, yeah, my mom was a waitress, she'd never wear heels, etc., etc. Like this is all a ruse. If they really wanted to get him sort of more confused to play along, is like have him go rob a bank for them or something like that, like something he's wanted for, or to make him perform an extreme stunt or something like base jump off of building, and get away with it, and like prove to us that you can do something we're going to call upon later in the movie that you're going to need to do, like jump out of an airplane and power sail down onto a moving boat in the middle of a river going 100 miles an hour. Like this never comes back.
The way this should work, maybe, and maybe it's not as fun for the movie, but like, Samuel L. Jackson's watching YouTube or whatever, right? Watching Vin Diesel's website, sees this crazy thing. They drug him. He wakes up on the plane, like, and for the job. Like, there shouldn't be a test. Like, again, what do you test? I don't think, because I think you did two different things there, Mike, right? It's either like, can he stop a robbery? Can he know it's fake? Neither of those skills are needed for what they're going to do, right? It's just like, I don't understand. They just drug him and be like, hey, there's a bomb strapped around your neck, do this or we'll kill you, or whatever, right? And like it just forces him. I don't know, it's weird.
It feels like Men in Black, right? Like maybe they're like, let's do that scene in Men in Black where we'll swap it. Like Will Smith has to like, do all the tests and figure it out, and since he's sort of like the misfit, like he passes because he doesn't follow the rules, and it's like that's this test. It's like, oh, okay, let's see if Xander Cage is going to follow, but there's no fucking rules to like stopping a robbery or anything, right? Like what's he gonna do, call the police? So while I enjoy the scene, it's confusing in the context of everything.
Because there's also like multiple scenes before we actually get to the recruitment too. Because like you mentioned, there's Danny Trejo who has a machete. We cover machete on this podcast. He's got a bloody machete. But then like there's a whole like escape scene where like they're on a plane. Then he's on a motorbike, and like he takes out a rifleman atop of like a guard tower with the rear wheel of this motocross bike.
Oh
like,
yeah, the motocross scenes are great. I fucking loved all of the dirt biking, like jumping through barbed wire with a dirt bike, like all this random shit. It's amazing.
Apparently, Vin learned how to ride those bikes for this movie.
Wow.
That's cool, but like at the same time, like I don't think he jumped it through the middle of the fucking barbed wire. So.
I like it because it feels like, breakdance fighting, right? Like in Zoolander or something.
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
He's extreme sports fighting. Like he's not just doing the trick, like he's laying someone out with it at the same time.
Exactly. I like that too. It like feels very like the one guy in Tekken, remember, that was like Eddie Guerrero. Like when he was doing the breakdance. Nobody? Sorry.
No, I never really played Tekken. I played Tekken a little bit in arcades, but I didn't actually play. That was on
Yeah,
PlayStation, right? I didn't. I had. No, why did I not play Tekken? I guess I just Mortal Kombat. Like I just didn't play Tekken.
yeah. I think it was more Mortal Kombat, and Street Fighter 2 was really my jam.
But like all this stuff is happening before Sam Jackson recruits him, and then eventually he recruits him, and then he's all of a sudden in Russia trying to buy cars. And like, why? What is the plan?
I don't know why he wants to buy cars. It's like a weird. It's a really, really strange thing that like that's the mission he gets sent on. It just feels like an arm extension of Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, I think the mission is to just gather intel, whatever that means. Just go. We're gonna go to Russia, like pose as a car dealer. These guys know that they're gonna buy cars from you, and we think they're shady. So like go with them and see what they know. And he hangs out with them for a while and finds out that they're Anarchy 99, and he reports to Sam Jackson, and he's like, I'm out. And Sam Jackson's like, stick around more and we'll make it worth your while. And he's like, okay, if you can get Asia Argento out with us, then I'll do what you want. And he's like, okay, Triple X, we got a deal. And then he stops them from releasing the gas.
I guess so. Like, because so he goes over there to buy cars, and he's like, that one's for me. He's like, oh, you certainly know your cars. And there's a great line that says, I like anything fast enough to do something stupid in, which is basically Vin Diesel, like Dominic Toretto's like mantra, right? Just like fast cars doing stupid things, whatever. And then he gets like drawn into like a James Bond movie. Like it becomes a James Bond movie. He meets his Q, who gives him like that whole thing of like, you know,
Oh yeah.
bullets and darts and whatever. And then he falls in love with Asia Argento. And then like they're like, okay, and then it's exactly what you said, but it's like it's like they just took a bunch of scenes from James Bond movie and like threw them into like a randomizer, and then just like, okay, here's a bunch of things. We're not like they're all the scenes you know, but they're out of order, and just follow them or don't. We don't care.
Yeah, I was thinking James Bond too, especially when he was like creeping around underground. It looked like GoldenEye a lot, and I was like, did they just go to like actual James Bond locations for some of this shit too? Out of while they were at
It
it.
does
like
kind
the
of feel like it. All the castles and shit. It's just like an open shot of like a castle in a background, like on a mountain
Yeah.
somewhere. It definitely does feel like GoldenEye. I agree.
And like the final scene of the movie is where spoilers, but at the end when they get away and it's him and Asia Argento like on an island somewhere, like just they're making out. Just like this is every end of every James Bond movie. Like, he's with the girl and making out and like ignoring calls. Right? Like they're like, but it doesn't feel like parody. It feels just like referential in a way. Like it doesn't feel crazy
Yeah.
enough to be parody. It's a weird middle ground. Again, I don't mind it, but I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't feel like it's parody either. It almost feels like admiration or something, like we want to be that. Like, so we're trying to our best to sort of put like a fresh new spin on it. Like, what if James Bond was an American? What if he was an extreme sports guy instead of this, government agent, all that kind of crap. And like, this is a 2 hour movie, and I don't know, like it takes like 40 minutes or so, or 30, 40 minutes to get to Prague. So technically this could have been like a James Bond script, and just like cut out the how James Bond starts, where it's like the action scene sort of the end of his last mission, and then that leads into the new movie. Instead it's just like, let's introduce Xander Cage's origin story, and then we'll just like lead that into the James Bond movie and have it play out as you expect. And it's cool to see Vin Diesel try to be James Bond. He's much more of a Roger Moore, like.
Sure.
I have a question, and I forgot about it while we were talking about the diner scene, but is that the same diner from Pulp Fiction? Because it really feels like it at some points. And you have Samuel L. Jackson there, and just like the way it's set up, I get that all diners kind of look the same, but that one felt almost identical to the one in Pulp Fiction.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think these were shot anywhere near each other geographically. Like, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I wouldn't put it out of like the thought of a rewrite where it's like, oh, we got Sam Jackson playing the recruiter, like let's do something with diners because like Pulp Fiction or something.
Then when they're on the mission, when he's on the mission, Asia Argento kisses him, and she's like, it'll never happen again. Spoiler,
Yes.
It does later. And then she says goodnight. He walks into his room, and there's a woman basically on a stripper pole, with the pole as the corner of his bed. And she gets into bed, and he just says, the things I've got to do for my country, and then just like the scene ends, like they're about to have sex. It's just like, who is this woman? Like, who? Yeah. What?
Where did she come from? How did she find him? How did she get in there?
Who's paying her? Who wants him to have a good time? Like, what? I don't know.
Yeah, and what really concerned me is like the amount of lit candles in that room. They're definitely gonna burn that mansion down, like one way or the other. Like that is just like I would have been like, lady, you gotta go and get a lot of like water. We gotta put these candles out. Like it's gonna be crazy. Open all the windows.
I've been thinking about that while we were watching House of Dragons lately. There's like a lot of candles and a lot of fires, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of tracks though. Like tons of candles.
Like, all those
and
rooms
an
are
old
stone, right? Like those are all just like if it falls over, it's just gonna like go out because it's on top of stone. This is, but
it'll like burn down all the curtains and bed and all that other shit first. So
we get Vin grinding down a rail on like a catering tray, which is really, really cool. Yeah. And then we get to the snowboarding scene, which Mike mentioned before. And this is the moment where I realized that all the problems I had with the Transporter movies were like solved here. Because like Transporter was just like, why aren't you doing more Transporter shit? Like, why aren't you driving all the time? And here, maybe to its detriment, it's just like, how do we have Vin do something insane in every single scene of this movie? And like they kind of do it.
I agree with you. I have no idea. And you're right. It did remind me a lot of like the skating down on the tray gave me big Transporter vibes. Because don't we have like skating on like a fire extinguisher in Transporter? Like the whole Transporter 3 fire extinguisher parts?
I could not tell you a single thing from any of those movies. And we watched those probably 3 months ago.
There was like a fire hose fight, if I remember correctly. And I think he skated down something with something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. It has to be there somewhere, but I feel like he slid down the steps on a fire extinguisher somehow. But yeah, that's what I was remembering.
I think this avalanche thing, like no joke, it's worth watching the whole movie for, like to get to this point.
He causes an avalanche.
But like even before he causes the avalanche, there's something insane about that snowboarding run. Like it is so it's filmed. This is like some of the best film stuff, probably because it's filmed by professional like snowboard filmer people. Like they probably brought in like good people for the second unit to do this on their own, and it looks amazing. It looks dangerous. It's insane. And like then he causes the avalanche, and like for 2002, I'm shocked at how great the quality of this avalanche is. Like, I'm thinking miniatures because I don't think CG was there yet, even in 2002. But if it was, this is by far like my favorite scene of the movie, I think.
And isn't like always snow really hard to do, like stuff like that?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, like in video games and stuff, that was just like always the shit that like looked the worst for a very long time. So yeah, I can't imagine how they did it.
And like I'm always concerned nowadays because of like upscaling with televisions and stuff, and the way things were rendered back in the day and everything. And this all held up really well. So I mean, it was probably all shot on film, and everything matched exceptionally well. So I was shocked.
I don't know if this was... I don't have an answer to the snow thing. I might have an answer to the filming. I don't know. But they wanted to use... And again, I don't know if this is for the actual production or to be used in the movie as, like, featured vehicles or what. But they wanted to use the Czech Air Force's jets. They were like, can we use 2 of your jets for this movie? They're like, you can use all of them. All you got to do is donate $50,000 to a pilot's hospital and buy us all beer. And that's all they had to do. And they got to use all of the Czech Air Force's jets for this movie.
That's
so
pretty
I don't
sick.
know.
That's a good
I don't know
deal.
if they were using that to film, like do like aerial shots in, or if that was just like, the planes that we see flying around, or both. But it feels like, oh no, they're just like, just give us beer and like we're cool. It's like, oh, awesome. All right, cool.
Have Zeph deliver it though. That's got to happen.
Mike, did you watch that movie yet or no?
I haven't yet, but I watched.
You don't need to, bud.
There was a really good segment on it on Sunday morning, like 2 weeks ago on Channel 2 by me. So like I know all about the movie, but okay, I'll take your word for it.
You can just listen to our podcast at double speed and save yourself like an hour 20 or something.
Cool.
Probably.
Yeah. So in this avalanche scene, he's snowboarding down. These guys are on snowmobiles trying to escape unsuccessfully. He's somehow going as fast, if not faster, on the snowboard. He then jumps onto an antenna to like get out of the way of the snow, which I'm like, okay, cool. So you're going to survive. But I'm like, how does the antenna survive? Because the antenna would get knocked, because it's not like it's like super reinforced. It's just like a sort of a normal like radio antenna. And not only does it survive, but like he's at the top and he survives and just goes, nothing like fresh powder. It's like, all right, that's pretty cool. Like I like that, but like, it's like you have to suspend so much disbelief here, and I don't mind it, but it's also like that's the way you thought you were going to avoid an avalanche, is like on a thin ass radio antenna.
I guess, man. I guess.
I guess I like it more now because of the ludicrousy of that, and like the one guy makes it into a cabin and the avalanche just completely obliterates the cabin he's in and takes it down with him, and then like he's looking at all the wreckage in the wake and it's just like pieces of snowmobiles like sticking out of things left and right, and you're like, that would sort of be all either covered or probably washed away with you, dude. Like, I don't understand how that survived, how that didn't break, but I love that it didn't break, and it's just like completely Looney Tunes, he's unbreakable.
We're nearing the end game now, and there's like this shootout in this big warehouse, and he tells a guy, dude, stop thinking Prague police and start thinking PlayStation blows shit up, which doesn't really make sense. It kind of does, but it's just a great line.
That's a great line.
He said earlier, like when he's talking to like, I guess they're like Q, right? Isn't that the guy in James Bond?
Yeah.
When he's like talking to their Q, he was like, oh man, like great shot or something. He was like, I played a lot of first person shooters.
Okay, so the video game motif has been established.
And like you said earlier, Eve, or whoever the girl was when Eve is there, was like, I would like to make your life into a video game. So they've been pushing the video game agenda.
Well, I think in the Who Is This For, it's for people who love Code Red and playing their PlayStation, right? Like, or their PlayStation 2 or whatever's out at this time, right? It's just that's the demo. That's who's seeing this movie. That's who's getting these free Blu-rays like Mike got, right? Like it's just dudes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Hey, you called it, man, because the tie-in, if I recall correctly, like ordered it with like the PlayStation 3. They gave you a voucher, like pick a couple Blu-rays and we'll send them to you for buying one. And so it's all part of the marketing.
I didn't know that you got that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
I don't remember that at all.
It even came with a free Spider-Man 3, so I have like I never opened that copy.
There's a guy earlier in the movie who Vin says, you should really get rid of that cigarette that's going to kill you one day. And then at the end of the movie, when they're in this shootout, they're able to use that cigarette's embers as the heat-seeking target for this heat-seeking missile, which feels wildly unbelievable, also awesome. And then he says, of course, I told him that cigarette would kill him one day. And it's like, yeah, cool, perfect.
Cool
Love it
line,
so much.
perfect.
Yeah, I feel like that should have blown up a gas station somehow instead, like, or it should have been like he leaked like the gasoline on the floor and then, threw a knife at the guy and the guy falls over and the cigarette falls and he catches on fire and then the whole place explodes. And then he's like, yeah, told you that cigarette was going to kill you one day, actually.
So Joey, we forgot to talk about yet. What's the most Dom moment of this movie?
Oh, we haven't really been. Do we do that in the non-Fast and Furious movies?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was every movie, like we do all the time.
I guess we do. I wasn't thinking about that. What do you have a pick for the most Dom moment?
Yes, I do. I think that him pre-creating the stunt from Fast and Furious 5 of jumping the car off the bridge and jumping off with the car as it goes down is the most Dom moment. But I also think a person that gets strong-armed into joining the police force is the most Brian moment of this movie, too. I think he has a very Brian moment of just like, oh, I'm the best detective here, but I'm also not very good at this, but I'm also really, really good at this.
Sure.
And that seems very Brian to me.
Well, I will say my pick is not going to be really a Dom thing because it's from a movie he's not in. But after there's like a closing wall, like he's trying to take out this thing called Ahab, which is like the chemical weapon that they're trying to stop, right? And it's like an Indiana Jones. The wall is closing, but he's trying to get his body in. They put like this like little fire extinguisher to like stop it. Like it seems like there's no way this thing would get stopped by that, but whatever, he gets saved. But the next thing is as he's racing against a bomb in the GTO, which is very, very Dom. That's specifically Dom. Fast and Furious Crossroads, the video game. Remember, like when you're racing against the spaceship, like to get onto the spaceship?
and he has to jump on it. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yeah.
So that's pretty dumb. But then the most Fast and Furious moment, I think, is when they're like, doesn't this roof come off? And they basically do ejecto roofo,
Yep,
and
they
they
do.
blow
Yeah.
the roof off the car. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
So I think it's racing a bomb as Dom, and then sort of the Roman moment or the Brian moment, ejecto roofo, so he can parasail out in his American flag parasail. Like, it's just like, it's an insane stunt to end the movie, and I love it.
I got a Dom/Fast moment
What?
as well. So he gets back to like his own apartment, and there's already like a party going on waiting for him when he gets home.
True.
Very, very
Very,
true.
very, very true.
I like that one a lot.
And then the final line that I wrote down. Well, no, there's one more. There's one Xander Cage line, and there's one other line that I wrote down. But the final line that he says that I wrote down is that as he takes out Ahab, as he saves the world, because of course he's going to save the world, he says, "Welcome to the Xander Zone," which I'm like, I get that, like, that sounds like it's assimilation, like it's the whole, like, the ZZ, but like it's the XZ. Like, it doesn't really work. It kind of
Yeah.
works. It's kind of like,
Yep.
that's not a plane, it's a planet. Like, looks cool on paper. This sounds cool, but when you think about it, it's like, that doesn't really work. But again, I love it.
But I don't mind it. I wish he had a better catchphrase though. Like it's weird that this is the one that he keeps using. Like it's cool that he uses
Yeah,
it once
because he
or
uses it
so.
more than once. Yep.
Yeah, but at the end he's like screaming it at a missile. He's like, "Welcome to the Xander Zone," and he just like jumps off the missile or something. So like, I wished it was like a little more pronounced of a moment. Like, and I also wish he was surfing on that thing at some point. You know, like
Oh.
yeah, they needed to add like surfing in a little bit somewhere in there maybe, but that's just me. And Vin Diesel looked like he was truly going to get hypothermia in that last shot of him on the dock there, where they're like, "Where is he? Where is he?" And he's like sitting on the little broken piece of wood, like shivering like a pigeon or something. He's just like, I was like, get him a blanket.
Well, he doesn't need a blanket because he goes onto that tropical island with Ozzy Argento. They're there, happy again, just like, James Bond getting the call. Sam Jackson calls him and goes, the last line that I wrote down, that might be the last line in the movie. "Oh, by the way, you passed the test."
Yeah.
The Gibbons test. It's like, dude, you're still not testing him. What the fuck are we doing here? There's no test. He saved the world. There's no, what? Okay, sure.
But I was thinking that might have been like a good like thing to be like, oh no, we just plotted that really was a test, and like the second one is like, oh, like now he gets to do an actual mission, and that was like a fake setup mission just as like his training.
I don't know. I think it would have been cool if he was like, "Hey, you did a great job. You passed the test and you saved the world, but your job's not over yet." Like, like you just got to lead into the next movie somehow. That this just left me confused.
Well, I do feel like this. I give this movie credit because if like Bloodshot, like Sonic, like every other movie that's come out in the last 10 years, some of which we cover for the show, some of which we've not. We'll get to Sonic one day when we cover every single movie that's ever been made.
Yeah.
Every movie now is just like, hey, you thought that movie was cool? Wait till the next one. It's just like, no, that movie was cool, man. Don't you love it? Leave. We're done here.
You're right. It just has to be set up like that. That's just how this shit works now. So
Yeah. That's all my notes for the movie. Joe, do you have any other notes about XXX?
yes, I have one more overarching note, which is that I'm glad we talk a lot about like Vin hitting peak Dom, and I
Yep.
don't think he's hit peak Dom here yet. So it's nice to see him not doing the like Vin brooding situation that we get like from 5 on in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
And it was like he was like kind of like charismatic and personable and like doing the stunts and stuff, and for like as much crap as we give him sometimes for like wanting the limelight, it actually put into perspective how little of the limelight he does have in some parts of the Fast and the Furious. Like I get that it's his and like he's the star and everything like that, but like
But it's
seeing
not
him,
really. It's him and Brian, right? Like, this is him.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like him in the Fast and the Furious giving up the limelight is something like a perspective that I didn't have before seeing this. Because you're right, this is fully him, and to have both sides of it, I'm like, oh, okay. So like everybody's like, Vin just wants full control of everything, which is likely true. But at the same time, it's like, well, he had The Rock in a movie, Jason Statham in a movie, Brian was with him like the whole time, and it was kind of Brian's movie. So like we can see him kind of take a little bit of a backseat in some of these, that I see him like as a fully leading action movie guy.
I like that he has energy in this movie. Like he's got vitality and pep. Like I think is what you were saying. Like he's not brooding, but he's also like in the first Fast and Furious, like he gets animated, but he's mostly just kind of like, cool under pressure. Here he's just like he's energized in a way that like Dom never has been. So it's a similar, like it is Dom basically still, but it's an energetic Dom.
Yeah, he's happy. I like how he plays happy, Like it's more fun, I think, to see him smirking and smiling and pulling off those one-liners as opposed to like scowling and growling and pulling off those one-liners. But I'll take whatever.
Mike, any other notes about XXX?
No, I look forward to seeing part 2 for the first time and then finishing up with part 3. And who knows, maybe by then they'll announce part 4. Fingers crossed.
Maybe. We get another scene here that's a very much like a Fast and Furious scene. Is you get Dom handcuffed with his hands above his head, like while he's dangling, and I was like, this is just straight out of the Fast. Like they just take this and they're like, yep, let's do that again, and like you can see it happen. But I think that's the last of my notes.
I do also want to say that, like, there's a lot of early 2000s, like, rap rock and hard rock and whatever, but one of my favorite albums of all time is Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age, and the song Millionaire is in this movie. I was like, that's hell yeah. Like, I didn't think it could, like, fit into a movie, but, like, it also fits perfectly here, so loved it a lot. So I thought that was great. But let's watch the trailer for XXX. This was posted by Sony Pictures Entertainment this year, for some reason, in August. Okay. XXX 2002 official trailer HD. Let me know when you guys have it loaded.
Didn't you say you just have the re-release for like the anniversary? Maybe it was that. Maybe they remastered the trailer too.
When did I buy this? I don't think. No, the 15th anniversary was 5 years ago.
This would have
been the 20th anniversary.
So maybe it's
20
that.
years ago, Xander Cage took saving the world to the extreme.
All right, Mike, you ready?
Ready to go.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play. The top comment is, this is the hardest trailer of a movie to search for. It's not really. Just type in XXX 2002. It's very easy, but
or XXX trailer.
We didn't talk about his tattoos at all.
Oh man,
we talked about the one tattoo, the XXX in the back of his neck, right? But like he's fully tatted.
The nipple one threw me big time.
Oh,
play this game. Oh, they just gave that reveal away, I guess. So
I don't think you'd be able to place that one though. You know what I mean?
I wonder how many times he's been thrown out of a plane.
What is this place?
Oh, I really like the shot through the vents too. That was very Fast and the Furious, like going through the engine.
Sure.
The jacket is awesome.
The big puffy jacket, I love it. I love it so much.
Just in his underwear. Yeah.
The binoculars that can see through anything, including a woman's clothes. It's like, all right. Thanks, Rob Cohen.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't it be cool if like you could just like see like through a woman's clothes?
You know what would have been amazing if like halfway through this movie he found out that they were vampires?
Like a spoiler alert for a movie that I'm about to say that people know, I think, but like from Dusk Till Dawn, right? It's just like, oh shit, this vampire movie. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it needs something like that where it's like, man, this is so sort of like by the book, but the explosions are cool and Vin's in it. Like, take me on a left turn somewhere.
It really does. Like, the sexism in Hollywood really does sort of suck. Like, I don't think Asia Argento is, like, great in this movie, but I feel like she should have had a much bigger career than she did if she hadn't been blackballed for speaking. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, she could have been in XXX too. Like, just her, Like, her mission. That's dope.
Yeah.
Shit.
It feels like a video game. This whole movie feels like a video game.
Was there a game? I wonder.
Probably.
And I wonder if there's like a CGI with Vin Diesel model.
I'm sure that there is.
If you search XXX video game, a lot of porn stuff comes up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
XXX the movie, the game. I like this opera. This isn't in the movie.
No, it's CGI. Okay. That's not.
I don't know
the one with it behind him. The one with it behind him looked like it.
Yeah, it looks worse in the trailer than it did in the movie. But
I don't think there was a video game, which feels
off, right?
Missed opportunity.
Because, that's the whole idea. Is like he's a tie-in commodity.
Do you guys think that like Rob Cohen and Vin were sitting there like we're gonna hit on one of these? Because that's what this kind of feels like to me. That they're like, okay, like we're gonna start a franchise and we're gonna like hit on one of these, and it just happened to like, and this would kind of explain with the Vin like leaving, going back type situation.
Yeah,
two.
because this would be like sort of his third. It would be like Riddick, Fast and Furious, then this, and it's like, well, what do we, let's keep going with these, trying to make these happen. But you know
Yeah.
what this kind of feels like? You know how like you hear sometimes how well, like someone will write like a book just to have it turned into a movie or a comic. Maybe it's more common with like graphic novels where like a lot of artists sometimes they just want to get their movie made, so they'll put it out as a comic first and hope it gets picked up and things like this almost feels like it's reverse engineered to be a video game. It's like we'll make the movie and then we'll make all the
Yes,
comics,
that's
the
what I'm saying.
games, the toys, and none of that followed. Like it's
Yep.
so baffling to me.
That's 100% what I was getting at. Yeah, that's how it feels like to me, and it kind of logics out in my brain too. So I don't know what happened.
So I just looked it up, and we'll talk about it again when we talk about the movie. But Pitch Black, which came out the year before The Fast and the Furious, had a budget of 23 million, so not very much. Made 53 worldwide, so successful, but not like a hit.
Okay.
The Fast and the Furious came out in 2001, budget of 38, so bigger, but again, still not huge. Made 207, so a really, really big hit.
Okay,
really
yeah.
successful for Universal.
Yeah.
This movie comes out the year after that, budget of 70 million, so they really jack it up. They basically
Wow.
double the budget of The Fast and the Furious. So, like, that was a hit. Here's money to make your next thing. This makes 277 worldwide. So, like, I think, proportionally, The Fast and the Furious is the most successful of these three. But again, this is another huge hit. So, like, you're saying one of these is going to hit. Like, they both kind of hit. And then Vin's like, all right, bye. And left both of them, right? So,
No, but I mean, like, hit enough that they're, because like this one feels like now, with all the video game references and stuff like that, like there was a strategy to this.
sure.
You know what I mean? Like it feels more so than like the Fast and Furious doesn't have like it doesn't feel like a movie that they have an agenda like this is gonna be a series, this is gonna be a video game, there's gonna be toys, there's gonna be things, and this feels like they're purposely putting this shit in to be like, okay, we're gonna do this. That's the next step of this. Like once this hits, we're gonna like then we make the video game and the toys, and then we make the cars and like the die cast and the Hot Wheel. Like, and they had like a plan, you know?
Yeah, yeah. At the least, I'm shocked that Xander Cage wasn't playable in like Tony Hawk Pro Skater at some point.
Fair,
Would have been cool.
absolutely. Yep, yeah.
All right, let's play the Letterboxd game. So, for reference sake, Mad Max Fury Road, one of the most popular films on Letterboxd, has been seen by 1.2 million people. XXX, 2002, directed by Rob Cohen, starring Vin Diesel, Asia Argento, and Samuel L. Jackson, has been seen by how many people?
Logged on Letterboxd. It's kind of old, but it's Vin. It's a big movie. Everybody's kind of seen it. I'm gonna start at 200,000.
Mike?
Whoa, that was way higher than I was gonna start.
Start where you start. You're probably
Yeah,
right.
I was gonna say more like 25,000.
Somewhere in between 25 and 200. Joe, what's your second guess? What's your real first guess?
125.
Mike?
85.
Mike, very, very close. 87,703.
Nice.
87,703. Average rating of 2.5. Most common a 3, then a 2, then a 2.5. How many people on Letterboxd have this in their top 4 favorite films of all time?
I'm gonna say like 8.
Nah, just based on like the numbers of people seeing it, I think it got to be a little bit higher than that. Like I'll go like 20.
Joe, you're kind of close, but you're both too low. Got to go higher than 20. One more guess.
24.
Let's say 32.
26 people have this in their top 4.
All right.
I found 3 different profiles we could play. I want to recheck which one of these are. This one we're not going to do, but one person had XXX, the first Fast and the Furious, Fast 5, and Pitch Black. This dude just loves Vin. That's
Okay.
great.
That works.
This person, do we want to do this one? Mike, give me a number 1 or 2.
2.
We're going to go to Radislav Yordanov at Yordanov on R Yordanov on Letterboxd. Did not review this movie, but XXX is his number 2 favorite film of all time.
Okay.
The other 3 movies all came out within 10 years of this movie, so just say basically 90s or 2000s.
Okay.
Joe, one of them we covered on, I think, our Patreon for this show.
Interesting. Okay.
Mike, you mentioned one of these movies in this episode.
Goldeneye.
Nope. And then
Is it
Mike,
a James
you
Bond
also,
movie?
I think, covered one of these on Brian's show.
Ooh.
So, Joe, we covered one, Mike mentioned one, and then I think Mike covered one with Brian. And we also, the one that he covered with Brian, we had in a top 4 on a Brian episode, and he could not guess the movie.
Holy mackerel.
From the 90s, it's actually all between 95 and 05.
Okay.
You want to try to guess one of them, or you want to throw ideas
Ferris
out there?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. No. I was thinking, is one of them a James Bond movie? Because Mike mentioned James Bond.
No, they're all dude movies, I would say. Ferris Bueller is not necessarily a dude movie. That's more of a 4-quadrant movie. These are all mostly just like movies that are cool for dudes, but not all like super aggro. Not like XXX is the most aggro of the 4.
Pulp Fiction.
Nope, 94.
Always a good guess.
Too early.
Oh,
Too early.
Dang, because I mentioned that. It's always hard when you don't remember what you said.
Can I get like some? So one of them's a high school movie, I'm guessing, because Brian covered it.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that Mike covered. There is a phrase in that movie that you guys used over and over again.
Oh, I remember this part of the conversation, but I don't remember what the
It's not really a
was.
tagline for the movie.
Okay, this isn't my night. I'm trying.
So there's some later ones.
This is tough.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was thinking maybe ours was Memento.
No.
Okay.
We covered this one on the Patreon. I want to say Last Lap. What was our Last Lap theme? Our Last Lap theme was heist movies.
Okay.
Not Hell or High Water, was it?
That's a good guess.
No, yeah, this was one that we did on the Patreon. It's not on the main feed. And Joe, our guest in this episode was Mark Hoffmeyer.
Oh, okay. Guest, and it was
someone from the Fast and Furious in this movie.
Okay.
They kind of pull off a heist to a certain extent. Set in Detroit.
Mark
said it's one of the all-time best back punches in a movie.
Oh, yeah. It's the one with Four Brothers.
Four Brothers. Number 4, favorite movie of all time.
Wow.
Mike, we still need to get... These other 2 are from the 90s. Mike, one of which you mentioned here, and one of which you covered with Brian.
Tough. All right, I feel like I mentioned 2 of the 3 movies that I talked about tonight.
What's the third one?
The third. I'm looking at my notes to see if I had maybe wrote it down as a reference or something. And was I on the Brian episode, or were you? What was the Brian clue?
It was you on an episode with Brian. Brian covered it. You use a catchphrase from it, but I can't remember what the catchphrase is, and Brian couldn't remember the movie either last time Brian was on.
This was a 2-part episode, Mike, that you guys covered in 2019, very early in the run. This was you and Caragalo Regan to talk about a film way ahead of its time.
Holy shit.
The early days of cyberspace.
The Net.
No.
Hackers,
yes.
Hack
Hackers.
the planet, baby.
Yes. Okay, that's right.
Love that movie. Sorry, Hackers fans, that I couldn't come up with it in time. Oh my
Brian
God,
couldn't either. It's okay. Now I remember. Okay.
Man, yeah. Okay.
All right.
We got one more.
Last
right?
That's Radoslav's
that's
number 1 favorite film.
Okay. That's his number 1? Oh, I like him.
Number 3 is a movie, Mike, that you mentioned in this episode.
Not a James Bond movie.
Not a James Bond movie, but not entirely dissimilar. There are special agents in this movie.
Oh, The Kingsman.
Suicide Squad.
No.
Oh, G.I. Joe.
No.
Rise of Cobra.
From the 90s. From the 90s.
Okay. Man, I mentioned a lot of movies today.
You did. That's just kind of your par for your course. I don't remember exactly the context in which you mentioned this movie. From the 90s. This spawned 3 sequels.
Holy Christmas.
I wonder if you've covered one of... hold on. Let's see here.
That would be the ultimate sadness if I can't think of it and I covered one on my show.
In one of these sequels, Joe, we had a guest. We had a guest of this show who is in one of these movies. In a very small part.
Okay. He was in Men in Black. You mentioned Men in Black. So
Men in Black.
Oh,
yes.
my God. I did mention Men in Black. Wow. Yeah.
Did you cover Men in Black 3 in your podcast or no?
I haven't. I was going to do it over the summer, and but I was going to do it, and then the Oscars happened, and then I was like, I don't want to talk about Will Smith for a while. So we'll get there.
But yeah, Hackers, XXX, Men in Black, and Ford Brothers. I feel like I gave bad clues because I felt they were all gettable, but I didn't lead you to any of them. But you got them all in the end, so that's fine.
okay.
It's okay.
As long as we get there, man.
This game is tough but fair, I feel, whereas like guessing the number of people who have seen the movie is just like it's like being on The Price is Right. It's just I don't know.
My
Just throw a
prediction,
fucking number out there.
my prediction for this movie's sequels is that the second one is going to be crazy and tough, and then the third one is going to be a lot more fun in terms of the Letterboxd game only. Because I feel like in terms of things, people have seen the original and the new one. I don't know who has seen XXX State of the Union.
Yeah,
but maybe there's
true.
a huge crowd. I don't know. Didn't look it up.
We'll
I
get
don't
there.
know. Can't
We'll
wait
figure
to
it
find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but next week, our next episode is officially Life in the Fast Lane. In about a week and a half from the time this comes out, the third episode, XXX Return of Xander Cage, will be on Mike's feed on November 3rd. But between now and then, we will put out our episode of XXX State of the Union on the Patreon. So toofast2forever.com for that if you want to complete the set. If not, just go check out Mike's feed, because that's a lot of good third times over there. But Mike, what do you want to plug? What do you want people to tell about? They already know, but maybe new XXX fans, who knows? What do you want to plug? What do you want to say to our listeners?
A couple shows real quick that I'd like to talk about that I am on is first, Joey and I have an Elvis podcast that we do, and there are a couple fresh episodes of that out, including one called Girls, Girls, Girls.
Mike, share the revelation we had today.
Which was the what?
I was like, I can't believe he did a movie called this, and you're like,
okay.
I didn't know that either.
So Joey messaged me today, and somehow we completely overlooked this after, acquiring every Elvis movie. He has a movie called Tickle Me.
Yep.
That's what it's called, folks. It's called Tickle Me. So I can't wait to talk about Tickle Me when we get there. But listen to us talk about boats, boats, boats. I mean, girls, girls, girls. I do a show called Monsters That Made Us with my co-host Dan Colon. It's the last Friday of every month, and we are looking at the history of the Universal Monster movie franchise. That's been a lot of fun. And I have a new show with Brian Rodriguez, who's been mentioned here tonight multiple times, and who is a Patreon member. So I'll give him a shout out here and a plug that we have a new show called Uncle Francis's Wine Cellar. We are going through the entire history of Francis Ford Coppola movies, cut by cut. And
you're still in the heart of The Godfather, the first Godfather. Is that correct?
True. We are taking our sweet-ass time. That is for sure. Just making it stretched. So,
well, there's always more to cut with The Godfather.
Precisely, yeah. So that's been a lot of fun. So please check all that out, cageclub.me.
Cool. And like we said, you'll be back sometime in the next, I don't know, we're going to record in a couple days. It'll be out a couple days after that, but sometime either this weekend for the listener. I don't know. I'm also trying to put it like halfway in between this and the third times, but who knows? It'll go out when it's done. That's what you're going to get it soon.
There you go.
That's all I got. But Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys always for having me. It's always a blast. Have fun.
For all things Too Fast, Too Forever, you go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. We'll read on the next episode on our Life in the Fast Lane. Check out our Patreon page at TooFast2Forever.com, which is where our XXX State of the Union episode will live exclusively, and our store at TooFast2Forever.shop. And come back next week for Life of the Fast Lane, and between now and then, XXX State of the Union. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too.
And I'm Mike Manzi.
And we'll tell you all about it
when we see you